What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. Single Tuesday with our guy Nick Underhill from neworleans.football. Go sign up for neworleans.football today. It is a fantastic, y'all. The best resource for all your Saints takes. Nick and Mike do a great job over there, as well as the entire team. Nick, what's happening, bro? What's going on?
Doing well, man. How you guys doing?
Doing very well. Just enjoying this random spring Tuesday. I got to be honest, though. As I said, you do the best job of covering the Saints 24/7, in depth, leaving no stone unturned. I myself am running into a little bit of creative. I guess you could almost call it like writer's block with the Saints,
all
right? I feel like I've had all the we've had the conversation. Like, what is kind of tickling your fancy right now? What is at the fore of your mind when you think about what interests you with the Saints at this moment?
Do you need me to do like a 15-minute monologue? Because I can't. You guys have been, I owe you something here, so I can do it if you need me to.
I mean, look, no, and that's the thing, right? I mean, you go to the website right now, and there's great pods up and draft previews and all these sorts of things. And like we've talked about Kubiak tons, but like even today, we put in some article that's awful from just some random fan-sided site that's like the Cowboys might want to look into trading Dak Prescott for Derek Carr. And I'm like, do we go there just for fun or something? So like, what is interesting you so much right now about the Saints?
I mean, for me, it's just kind of like trying to uncover like the actual rankings of players at different positions. And you kind of start hearing more of the stuff about like the concerns that people have about players as you get closer to the draft. And I know whenever one of those goes out on Twitter, there's like an outrage of like, why are you, but like, there's usually real stuff behind those. So then like I like to try to find out what's going on with why, maybe there's a report about somebody having, that's scaring teams a little bit or whatever. So it's just kind of going through that process. But for me, like right now, like I just finished an article yesterday and it was just kind of fun to look at it and try to figure out and reverse engineer a little bit like the type of offensive tackles that have fit and done well in the Shanahan scheme. And there's a story up on neworleans.football about that. I think it went up this morning. If everyone did their job and is on schedule, I haven't actually looked. But I mean, like it's just kind of like for a while I was thinking like, man, maybe they could take Brian Thomas at 14 and you get your 6'3" receiver that runs a 4.3, and then maybe take someone like Patrick Paul in the second round, and then you start looking at Patrick Paul and you start watching his film and you start talking to people, and then you start looking at the 10-yard splits and the 3-cone times of people that have had success in the Shanahan offense and the types of players that they've gotten rid of in Patrick Paul. All of a sudden it's like, man, I don't think he fits, or like Mims, I don't think he fits. So it's kind of just maybe trying to more fine tune that process and figure out like exactly who the players are that will fit this new offense. And like for me, it's kind of really fascinating to do it. I'm looking at the receivers and like for me, like blocking it is becoming a more important thing with it, because you look at the scheme and the way some of these receivers have been used in, San Fran, Miami, Houston, and you do need that element. So if they're drafting one and then you're looking at it and you got Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed out there, you kind of need somebody that can do some of the dirty work a little bit now. And I think some of that is Cedric Wilson, but if you're drafting someone, I think you want that to be part of it. And I've been looking more and more at the fullbacks, and I'm getting excited about Horvath, thinking about him and how he can fit and with the hands he has and what he might be able to do. And obviously he has to beat out Adam Prentice, but I think there's potential there for him to have some of that use check type role. I mean, just with the way he was used in college and going back and watching that and just how sure-handed he was. And I think that's kind of exciting. So for me, it's still like the Kubiak thing, but it's kind of just like really starting to get like more layered into it and how it's going to change their process a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think some of the guys that were like these giant humans that were always kind of like, well, that's Jeff Ireland right there. Like he wants the 6'8", 320-pound guy. Like, yeah, I think they still do, but I think that just the package looks a little bit different now, and just kind of trying to figure that out, I think is fascinating. And I don't think we have all the answers yet. The draft will tell the story there a little bit, but I think it's just kind of exciting to see like how that thought process changes.
So Nick, you'll be pleased to know, posted 2 hours ago, Saints NFL draft, which offensive tackle makes most sense for New Orleans. So that's why I wonder why I didn't see it. It's because they dropped right when the show started. So you can go explore that more in depth if you want to at neworleans.football.
Hey, everyone keeps their job for another day. That's
there
good.
There you go. So, Nick, is it more likely, because receiver and tackle, obviously those are the positions of need and positions that we've kind of identified, a lot of people that the Saints will select probably in the first 2 rounds, and we know the draft, it can be crazy, but is it more likely they go receiver than tackle or tackle than receiver, considering both of those positions are probably the 2 deepest positions in this draft?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tackle first. I will put my money on it. And I think like if Fashion there, like I think that's someone that would really fit really well. And I think that's kind of I think the wish list is probably Joe Alt, Fashanu, Latham, Fuaga. I think it kind of goes like that. I think Fuaga's kind of interesting. Like he's the guy that if you look at it, he played the most snaps and with a scheme that ran outside zone. So you can kind of look at him and see that projection more easily than I think with anybody else, because you kind of really have to look for the snaps with some of the other guys to see them in some of the run schemes that I think translate over. Fashion, who had probably about 60 snaps last year, he moves really well. He has good lateral ability. I just think his overall package is the best after Joe Alt. I like Latham a lot. He's built like a guard, but he plays tackle. He moves like a tackle. That kind of makes him intriguing. And then I think Fuaga is probably the most likely one that's there at 14 if the mocks are to be believed. My problem with him is I feel like he's probably more a guard or a right tackle. I don't know that I see the left tackle projection there with him. So that's kind of like a bummer, so to speak. But then at the same time, you look and then it's, Ryan Ramczyk, he might... Like if I had to guess, like he might not play again. Like his career very possibly could be over. And I think you have to prepare for that contingency. And I think we kind of all have this like mental idea of that like left tackle so much more valuable than right tackle, but I think it's kind of the same now. So I don't know if that's a huge problem. But if you take him on, like I think you want maybe the flexibility to put him on either side. Like if Ramczyk does come back and Penning's not ready, you can maybe move somebody or vice versa. I think he's kind of just more on the right side, but I think you do go there. And then like you look at the wide receivers second round and like you might be able to get Keon Coleman and, that'd be a good fit. Big guy, can make a lot of plays. I think he's kind of the opposite of what they have now. I think the 40 time something that you look at and it's a little bit like, man, 4.6, but they have their big receiver, in their prototypes, they added a big receiver prototype, and it's a 6'3" guy that's kind of, has that special ability to be thrown open and all that. And I think, when you prototype him into that, I think he's a fit. So I like that. Maybe you can get Leggett. Maybe Adani's there. Maybe, Xavier Worthy. He's probably late first. But, I think you can get a good wide receiver.
Options at that point.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. I think your options at wide receiver are better in the second round because, like, if you wait at tackle, like, really quickly, like, you might just be looking at, like, Patrick Paul and Blake Fisher. And I don't know if you love the value of either one of them at 45. So if you're waiting and you have this, like, pressing need, at least with receiver, you can go out there, you can field your team, and you're fine. Like, you put Cedric Wilson out there with those other guys, you got A.T. Perry, you're cool. If you don't get to tackle and you get to 45 and then you got to draft someone that you're just kind of like, man, like, I think that's how you end up in trouble. So I think you kind of got to, all things being equal, obviously if the receiver value is way higher when you're sitting at 14, you take the receiver. But if you got similarly graded players, I think you have to go tackle first.
Leggett would be somebody, speaking of kind of different receiver bodies than you have, he's not the tallest guy. He's 6'1", but he's 222 pounds. And also, I know he played for South Carolina, and it's going to be an easy comp, but if you're coming from an offense that had Deebo Samuel, played at South Carolina, does a lot of things that a receiver can do, that a running back can do. He has shown that he can be that kind of player. And if you're coming over from San Francisco, you just had an X-factor weapon like that. That's the closest thing to a Deebo in this draft. That would have to intrigue Kubiak, I would think.
Yeah, he looks like a easy fit. He does a lot of things that I think would be. He's a little bit more physical too. Like you said, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's a little more physical than a lot more physical than their top 2 guys that they have. right now. I'm kind of excited to see how Olave comes back. I hear he's doing more like weight work, and I think he made good progress last year. If he makes a little more to it, I think that could be a big difference. But it's definitely something that they badly need. They need somebody that's good after the catch. I've seen some of that from him. He's intriguing for sure, and like he's definitely someone that I think could be there at 45. So it's a realistic option. So I like that. I'm more excited about talking about him at 45 than I am trying to fit Patrick Paul into the offense and make him, be a fit. So I think that you can get somebody that's just more, I don't know, just better value at that position and fits it a little bit cleaner than trying to put, the square peg in the round hole or whatever. So I think it's just, if I'm doing it, I think that's the way it goes. I would be shocked if it goes the other direction if there are good tackles on the board at that spot. And I think there should be. I mean, the more quarterbacks that go early in this draft, the better it is for the Saints. Get them all pushed up there. Like, they're you're seeing all kinds of names in the top 10 right now. And if that's the way it plays out, and then they have their choice, and like if Fashanu somehow, does end up falling, I think that is the absolute best case scenario for the Saints.
Oh, that would be awesome. So speaking of kind of seeing all these names floating out there, a little bit of a process question here, Nick. Last one for me, but you are a very experienced journalist and have been for a long time now. And one of the kind of core parts of your job are managing relationships, getting information, and then sifting through what's real and what's not. And we all know that this is misinformation season. Everybody's trying to get trying to muddy the picture, if you will. So, like, what's your kind of process in terms of seeing through the smoke? How do you try to discern what is real and what's not?
I've been doing this long enough that I just have people that I have gotten information from, and over the course of years, and you just know their money. But like when you're developing like a new source, like a lot of times I'll take things that people tell me and just not do anything with it, just wait and see. And when you're kind of younger starting out, like you kind of feel like every single time you get something you got to put it out because that's how you build your career, and it's a life changer. But like if you're starting out and you get something wrong, like you're buried. And I kind of had that patience early on. Just I had good mentors and stuff that kind of told me, hey, look, like not everything you get has to be reported. I mean, I know more stuff that I don't report than I do report at this time. And a lot of times you're looking at the value of it. And a lot of times just being able to tell somebody else something that isn't extremely valuable or that isn't going to change how the public understands things. Like you use that stuff to kind of have other conversations, and there's a give and take to it. And, but if you're in this long enough, there's just people that, you can trust, and you have good information, and it's just kind of building a track record with people. And if you have a news source and they tell you something that is valuable, like you got to check that with somebody else until you know that, like, okay, I've talked to this guy 75 times, and 75 times his information has been right. I believe it now, and I'm not exposing myself at all. And look, sometimes you're going to get stuff wrong. It doesn't matter how careful you are, but I never want to, put something out there where that you took a shortcut or you were trying to take a risk, and it's never worth it. One story is never enough. So it's kind of knowing like if you're being played or not, and you got to look at someone and you got to always think like, why are they telling me this? And if the reason they're telling you is that it might help their client, like then you might be getting played. So you just always have to think about it. Or if it's somebody that, if it's the team you cover and there's a player that, isn't going to drop to them, and now that team is telling you all this character stuff about somebody, you might want to wonder like what their motive is for doing that. So I think those are the things that people kind of got to look at. But like, especially draft time, like I'm usually trying to hit like neutral parties, like people that maybe don't have any stake in what the Saints are doing, to find out how players are viewed and how they're graded and how they're stacked. And because they have no reason to lie to me. Like, so I think just sometimes you got to work the edges, and then once you work the edges, you try to bring it back to the middle to verify some of the stuff you've heard. And it's just kind of putting together a puzzle. And the longer you do it, like the more it's easier to move and make sense, and not be put in those situations where, someone's using you to try to influence how a player falls or gets drafted.
I don't know.
Well, I'm saying, and sometimes you have the right information, it's 100% factual, and then in the 11th hour, something changes, and then it comes out that it's different, but it hasn't always been different. It just changed right before because that's happened plenty of times as well. And those are the kind of the frustrating ones that it's 100% factual, and then for whatever reason, right at the last minute, that information changes.
It's I mean, look, I don't know, and the reason why I asked that, Nick, I don't know that you could have had a better advertisement for why New Orleans on football is worth the subscription, because I mean that is the thought and the effort and the insight, the experience that is going into bringing you everything that you read on the site or listen to or watch. Nick, thank you so much, man. Nick _Underhill on Twitter. Thank you, man, and we will speak with you again next week. Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.